The first thing Xalen noticed when he stepped into the observation chamber was how clean everything looked. Not just clean sterile, like the walls had never seen a fingerprint. He adjusted the collar of his dark blue jumpsuit and tried not to feel like a rat entering a maze. Above him, 3 levels of transparent viewing balconies sat stacked like inverted stadium seating. Aliens peered down at him, their faces hidden behind different types of visors, lenses, and glassy membranes. Some had no visible eyes at all. A voice echoed from the ceiling, calm and dispassionate. Subject Xalen Cross. Baseline vitals confirmed. Psychological readings within acceptable parameters. Commencing Module 4, Fear Response Under Social Pressure. Xalen muttered under his breath, "Yeah, sounds great." A door slid open on the far side. A tall, willowy alien stepped through, its skin an opalescent gray-blue, its long arms folded neatly. It wore a flowing garment that shimmered faintly. "Greetings," the alien said in surprisingly fluent English. "I am Virex. I will be your instructor during this module." "You're teaching me to be afraid now?" Xalen asked, squinting. "Not quite. We are observing your fear responses. You are not expected to perform, only to react." "Terrific," he sighed. "Just react. That's what I'm best at." Virex tilted its head. "Fascinating. You display sarcasm even under unknown conditions. Is that a coping mechanism? It's cheaper than therapy." There was an awkward pause, then Virex gestured toward a set of chairs at the center of the chamber. "Please sit. The others will join shortly." The others? For more aliens entered in a staggered line. They were all distinctly different. One was squat and spherical with twitching eye stalks, another tall and insectal with long, delicate limbs, a third gelatinous and semi-transparent, and the last a lanky, straight-spined figure with bark-like skin and a glowing chest cavity. They each took a seat, leaving one between the bark-skinned figure and Xalen. The gelatinous one squelched unceremoniously into place, and a faint bubble escaped its surface with a soft pop. "Nice to meet you guys," Xalen said, trying not to stare. "I'm Xalen. I guess we're classmates." The bark-skinned one answered, its voice deep and melodic. "We are observers. You are the subject. We are here to study. Right? So I'm the frog in the science class dissection." "Frog?" the insectal one asked, antennae swiveling. "Never mind." Virex stepped to the center. "Let us begin. Subject will be exposed to escalating stressors. You may not interfere." Xalen raised a hand. "Define stressors." The lights dimmed. A loud metallic bang echoed through the chamber, followed by the sound of a baby crying. Then the floor beneath them trembled subtly. One of the eye stalks on the squat alien twitched violently. "Interesting," said the gelatinous one. "His heart rate increases during infant distress." "Why?" "I'm not heartless," Xalen muttered. "That's a baby." "There is no infant present," Virex said. "Only audio simulation." "Still counts." More sounds followed. Screams. Sirens. The clatter of gunfire, though Xalen could tell it was artificial. He gritted his teeth, his fingers tightening on the armrest. Then something real happened. There was a sharp, concussive boom from above. The viewing balconies rippled with light, and a series of alarms blared in a tone far more urgent than before. The chamber lights flickered, went out, then came back on in a dim red glow. Virex straightened. "This is not part of the module." The gelatinous one began to quiver. "Unauthorized breach in energy subgrid alpha," a mechanical voice announced. "Containment compromised. Evacuate immediately." The insectal alien stood. "This facility is not designed for structural instability." "No kidding," Xalen said, already scanning for exits. Another boom rocked the room. The squat alien rolled off its chair and spun in circles, emitting short bursts of static. "Where's the exit?" Xalen demanded. "We must remain until clearance is granted," Virex said calmly. "You're all gonna die if you wait in here. We have no data indicating." The ceiling cracked. A panel dropped and smashed into the floor not 3 feet from the gelatinous alien, who recoiled violently. "All right, no more data, just instincts," Xalen muttered. He ran to the door he'd entered through and yanked the emergency lever. It didn't budge. He slammed his shoulder against it. Locked. "Great." The bark-skinned alien stepped forward. "There is an emergency passage behind the observation wall." "Show me." The alien moved with long strides, lifting a section of the wall as if it were paper. Xalen ducked through, motioning for the others. "Move. Now." The gelatinous one hesitated. "Come on, Jello. Let's go." "I am not named Jello. Not the time." The floor shook again. Dust rained from the ceiling. The squat one squealed and rolled into the passage without prompting. They moved through a narrow corridor lit by flickering emergency strobes. Pipes hissed and the air smelled faintly of ozone and burnt plastic. Xalen led, gripping a broken panel he'd torn from the wall like a makeshift shield. Virex moved beside him. Why are you assisting us? Because you're alive. And trapped. And so am I. You override your fear for our benefit? No. I override it because I've seen worse. What could be worse than death? Xalen glanced at him. Not doing anything. Another quake sent them sprawling. A ceiling vent fell and struck Xalen's shoulder. He grunted in pain and dropped the panel. He clutched his arm, wincing. Virex leaned over. You were injured. No time. We keep moving. We must assess the severity. I said keep moving. He stood, cradling his arm. The bark-skinned alien looked at him. You are damaged. You must cease. I can't. You all need to get out. The corridor opened into a larger maintenance bay. The exit was across a small bridge spanning a pit filled with broken machinery. Xalen limped forward, then paused. Wait. He tested the bridge. It groaned. Only one at a time. He waved the insectal alien forward first. It darted across. Then the bark-skinned one. Then the gelatinous. The squat one rolled across with less grace. Virex waited beside Xalen. You go, Xalen said. You cannot cross with your arm in that condition. Didn't ask for a diagnosis. He stepped onto the bridge, favoring his left leg. Halfway across, the bridge snapped. Xalen lunged, grabbing the edge with his good hand. Xalen, Virex called out. I'm fine. He dangled over the edge, pain lancing through his shoulder. He tried to swing his legs up, but his arm refused to cooperate. Help him, Virex ordered. The bark-skinned alien reached down, gripping Xalen's wrist. It took both of them to pull him up. He collapsed on the other side, gasping. Your shoulder is likely dislocated, the bark-skinned one said. Feels worse. You will not be able to use it. Figure that out. They moved again, slower now. Xalen's shirt was soaked with sweat and his arm hung limp. The pain was constant and sharp. They finally reached a reinforced hatch. Manual release, said the insectal alien. Xalen stepped forward, his breath shallow. He looked at the lever and braced his foot against the wall. With a scream, he yanked it down with his good arm. The hatch opened. Cool air rushed in. They were outside on a landing platform. A rescue craft hovered nearby. Lights circled as it docked. Virex guided him inside. You are in need of immediate medical attention. Yeah, Xalen said, leaning against the wall. Just glad you're all right. The last thing he saw before his knees buckled was the squat alien waving what looked like a stubby appendage at him. Then everything went black. Xalen woke to the sensation of something cool and rubbery pressing against his forehead. His first instinct was to swat it away, but only one arm responded. The other felt like it had been replaced with a bag of knives. He hissed, blinking into a room lit in soft green hues. Everything smelled faintly of mint and copper. A tendril retracted from his forehead as a translucent figure leaned over him. Its face was featureless, except for 3 concentric circles that pulsed in a slow rhythm across its chest. Subject is conscious. It announced in a tone that suggested it had never once been surprised. Xalen licked his dry lips. You always start your greetings like that, or am I just special? No vocal greeting protocols are installed. I am a restoration technician. Great. So, Doc, how bad is it? The technician made a sloshing sound as it shifted. Your shoulder was dislocated and partially torn. You also sustained a mild concussion, a hairline fracture to the humeral shaft, and extensive bruising across the thoracic region. We have initiated tissue realignment and neural stabilization. Full recovery is estimated in 11 Earth days. Only 11? I was expecting at least a dramatic month in a cast. No immobilization required. Your physiology responds unusually well to regenerative scaffolding. We are logging this for further study. He groaned and tried to sit up. Pain flared and a mechanical arm descended from the ceiling to gently urge him back down. Remain horizontal, the technician said. Vertical stress may reverse progress. All right, he muttered, settling back. Is everyone else all right? None of the other subjects were physically harmed. Minor psychological distress was noted but resolved within acceptable parameters. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the relief settle in. Then a new voice entered the room. You were not expected to survive the collapse. Xalen turned his head and saw Virex standing by a rounded doorway, arms clasped behind its back. The alien's robe was different, darker, with subtle streaks of gold threading through the fabric. "Sorry to disappoint," Xalen said. "Guess I forgot to check your expectations before not dying. We have reviewed the security footage. Your decision-making under duress was unconventional." "Yeah, that's a pretty human specialty." Virex moved closer, stopping just beyond the foot of the bed. "Most species, when confronted with uncontained environmental hazards, prioritize self-preservation. You placed yourself at increased risk to assist others. Because leaving people behind sucks. I don't know how to say that in your language, but it's not complicated. We have constructed over 87 simulations of the incident. In only 2 scenarios does the human survive with comparable injuries. In both, you were aided by external variables not present during the real event. Maybe you're not accounting for stubbornness. That tends to skew your models." Virex tilted its head slightly. "You displayed an alarming disregard for your own limits." "That's kind of the point." There was a pause. The technician adjusted some settings on a console, emitting a soft chime, then slithered silently out of the chamber. Virex stepped closer. "Why did you not ask for assistance crossing the unstable bridge?" "Because I didn't think anyone would offer." That assumption was incorrect. Assistance would have been given. Xalen sat up slowly, ignoring the warning ping from above. "Maybe. But I wasn't going to wait around to find out. You've got protocols, safety thresholds, decision chains. I've got a gut feeling and a broken arm. Guess which one moves faster?" "This behavior is statistically aberrant." He gave a small shrug with his good shoulder. "Welcome to humanity." There was a long silence. Then Virex gestured to the wall. A portion of it rippled and displayed a frozen image, Xalen dangling from the edge of the bridge, blood streaming down his arm, eyes fixed upward. "This moment has been circulated among the academic cohort. There is considerable debate regarding your thought process." "Yeah? What's the consensus?" "That humans are either catastrophically irrational or uniquely resilient." "Why not both?" Virex considered this without comment. The image dissolved. "We are modifying the curriculum. Future modules will include contingency variables based on human behavioral patterns." "Do I get royalties?" "No." A soft chime interrupted them as the door hissed open again. The bark-skinned alien entered, carrying a thin rectangular object that glowed faintly. It approached the bed and held the object out to Xalen. "This is a token of recognition. Your actions preserved our cohort." Xalen eyed it. "Is this going to explode?" "It is a synthesis of our native wood fiber memory substrate. It contains a record of your decisions during the event." He took it with his good hand. It felt oddly warm, like it had been carved from something still alive. "Thanks. I'll put it on my non-existent mantle." The bark-skinned alien didn't respond, but placed one hand over its chest, then turned and exited. Virex remained. "You have altered our understanding of fear." "Glad I could help," Xalen said, leaning back again. "Any chance of getting out of here soon?" "I'm starting to hallucinate food smells." "You require one more cycle of recovery. Then you will be released from the observation sector." "Back to Earth?" "No. You have been requested for a symposium on adaptive response strategies. Several species have expressed interest in interviewing you." Xalen groaned. "So I save a few aliens, and now I'm a lecture circuit celebrity?" "Correct. Do I get a translator that doesn't sound like it's quoting instruction manuals?" "Unlikely." He sighed, then laughed softly. "Well, at least I won't have to go back to filling out spreadsheets." Virex watched him with what might have been curiosity. "You fear boredom more than danger. Boredom doesn't make you bleed, but it kills you slow. An interesting philosophy." "It's not a philosophy. It's Tuesday on Earth." Virex turned toward the door. "Your meal will arrive shortly. It has been adjusted to your nutritional requirements. Any chance of coffee? We do not serve stimulants to recovering patients. You're worse than hospital nurses." Virex paused. "That is not the first time I have heard that comparison." The door slid shut behind it. Xalen lay still for a long moment, staring at the ceiling, which had begun to display a soft flowing pattern like oil on water. His body ached, but it was the familiar ache of something mending. He traced the edge of the wooden token with his thumb and chuckled faintly. "Catastrophically irrational," he whispered. "I'll take it." Outside the chamber, a low chime echoed down the corridor. In a nearby observation room, a group of aliens sat in silence, watching the live feed of the human lying on the medical bed. One of them a thin, crystalline being with refracting limbs tilted its body toward the others. Should we be concerned that he laughed while alone, following trauma? No, said another, a flat, disc-shaped entity whose voice resonated through vibration. Humans often display humor when confronted with existential implications. Curious. Will it affect his prognosis? Unknown. But it may explain their unusually high survival rates in unstable environments. The feed flickered as the human turned on his side and muttered something about pancakes. They recorded it anyway. 3 days later, Xalen stood in front of a full-length reflective panel, shirtless, grimacing as he rolled his shoulder in slow circles. The pain had dulled to a persistent throb, a sort of background ache that flared only when he pushed it. The dull green scaffolding gel had receded completely, leaving behind pink, tender skin threaded with faint, artificial lines like someone had tried to stitch him together with light. A voice chirped from above. Range of motion nearing optimal. Mild inflammation detected. Cooling compress recommended. Thanks, Siri, he muttered. The medical bay was quiet now, save for the low hum of circulation vents. Most of the staff had rotated out after the initial crisis debriefs. He'd been visited by a rotating cast of curious officials, all of whom asked wildly specific questions about his decision-making, muscle fatigue, and what kind of upbringing encouraged a person to risk their life for strangers. He'd answered what he could, dodged what felt invasive, and pretended to be asleep when the questioning turned philosophical. But today there were no visitors. No prodding. No unexpected tests. Just him, a tray of lukewarm nutrient paste he hadn't touched, and the quiet realization that he was probably going to be cleared for release before nightfall. He pulled on the sleeveless top that had been left for him, made of some breathable weave that adjusted to his temperature. Then he sat gingerly on the edge of the bed and flexed his fingers. Release me, he said aloud, wondering if the room would respond. It didn't. Instead, the door opened on its own, revealing a familiar, oblong silhouette outlined against the corridor's soft lighting. The small, rotund alien with eye stalks rolled forward cautiously, a tray balanced on its flat back. Hey, Tank, Xalen said, raising an eyebrow. You bringing snacks or peace offerings? The creature's eye stalks twitched in what he'd come to recognize as mild offense. This is a recalibrated flavor matrix designed for your species' comfort. We were informed your previous meal resembled chewed carpet insulation. That's a generous interpretation. The tray was lowered onto a small stand. On it sat a bowl of something that resembled mashed sweet potato, a flat circular bread that steamed slightly, and a metal cup that clinked when Xalen picked it up. What's in this? Hydrated stimulant compound, filtered through kelv root. You may find it similar to your substance. Coffee. Xalen sipped. It wasn't coffee, but it was hot, bitter, and kicked his brain like a mule. He drained half the cup in one go. Tank watched, unmoving. You consumed it too rapidly. Side effects may include hallucinations. Good. I miss Earth. I'll pretend I'm in a diner. The little alien made a noise like someone stepping on a child's toy. You are expected in Sector D12 by second interval. There is to be a formal recognition of your conduct. Recognition? I'm not wearing a sash. You will remain as you are. The ceremony is observational. Xalen took another bite of the bread. It was crisp, faintly sweet. So I just show up and stand there while people stare at me. I've done worse. Afterward, your departure from the facility is scheduled. He paused mid-chew. Departure where? Your contract is concluded. You are free to return to your origin point or accept reassignment. Xalen set the bread down. No one mentioned a contract. You signed the digital consent sequence. I thought that was a medical waiver. It was also a consent sequence. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Of course it was. There was a pause. Then Tank inched closer. Before you leave, I am instructed to ask a question. Xalen glanced down. Shoot. Why did you not flee when the structural breach occurred? He exhaled slowly. Because you were all frozen. I've seen that before on Earth. People locking up when something awful happens. And I've seen what happens when nobody moves. So I moved. Even knowing you might not survive? That part never really factors in. You get used to rolling those dice. The alien was quiet for a long moment. Then it turned around and left, Trey still sitting beside him. By the time the second interval bell chimed, Xalen had cleaned up, tied his hair back, and found the narrow corridor that led to the viewing chamber. It had been repaired completely. Not a single crack or scorch mark remained. The transparent balconies were full again, filled with the murmuring forms of observers from at least 24 species. At the center stood a round platform about waist-high, lit from below. Virex waited at its edge. Xalen approached with a lopsided wave. "Here for the awkward applause?" "There will be no applause," Virex said. "It would distress several of the attending species." "Even better." He climbed onto the platform. The light intensified, surrounding him in a gentle glow. Around him, the crowd quieted. Virex stepped forward. "In accordance with Inter-Observer Protocol 16, we recognize the subject known as Xalen Cross for demonstrating high-order adaptive response under duress, altruistic risk engagement, and non-standard threat prioritization. These traits, though anomalous, have expanded our understanding of interspecies cognitive variance." Xalen blinked. Was that a compliment or an alien HR memo? Several heads turned toward him. Virex ignored the comment. As part of this recognition, the subject is granted unrestricted passage to all public sectors of the arcology and cooperative trade stations under observer jurisdiction. Additionally, your neural signature has been added to the Resilience Archive. You are, henceforth, a documented anomaly. Xalen raised an eyebrow. "You're giving me a library card and labeling me a freak?" "Anomaly," Virex corrected. "It is intended as a mark of distinction." A low harmonic sound filled the chamber. Not music exactly. More like a resonance that vibrated through the bones without passing through the ears. He stood still, unsure whether to bow or salute or simply endure it. After a few moments, the lights faded. The sounds tapered off. The balconies began to empty. Virex approached again. "You may collect your possessions and depart." "I don't have possessions," Xalen said. "Unless you count a half-eaten tray of root vegetables. You will be escorted. Transportation arrangements have been made." He stepped off the platform, wincing slightly as his shoulder protested. The pain hadn't gone, it had simply become manageable. As he walked down the corridor toward the transport bay, the bark-skinned alien emerged from a side passage. "I reviewed your final statement." "Which one?" "The one where you said not doing anything was worse than death." Xalen nodded once. "I have translated it into 12 languages. It has sparked dialogue among the younger cohorts. Some believe it reflects a primitive instinct. Others think it is a form of evolved moral logic. And what do you think?" The alien considered it. "I think it is dangerous, but beautiful." They walked together for a few steps, then the alien peeled off with a nod. No ceremony. No farewell. At the bay, a small vessel waited. Its hull shimmered with heat-diffusing panels. Just large enough for one person and their thoughts. As the hatch opened, Xalen turned for a final glance at the facility. Clean lines. Controlled air. No sign of the chaos it had endured. He stepped inside, strapped in, and leaned back as the engines engaged. No one had asked him to be brave. No one had thanked him for being afraid and acting anyway. But in a room full of beings who could calculate terror down to decimals, maybe that had been enough to change something. The ship rose, and with it the last echoes of that quiet, absurd moment where a human had done the one thing no one had simulated. He had cared. Without permission. And that, apparently, had been the anomaly.